In this episode, we chase down the smoke, we swap the carburettor, we drill studs and we check the cylinder heads for leaks. Hi, I'm Darren, an untrained amateur who's determined to save one of the last of these classic cars. This is Roy, a 45-year-old 2.8 litre Vauxhall Royale coupe. When I owned one 30 years ago, they were rare. Now they're unknown. This is one of the last of its kind and I'm going to rescue it and relive my youth. Follow the rebuild, watch this legend come back to life. Okay, we've got a nice simple little job this evening. When I took the car out yesterday, there was a huge amount of smoke coming out the back. Now there's really only two things that can cause that. Bottom end of the engine, something like the rings are gone and it's letting oil into the cylinders to be burnt, or it's top end of the engine and it's the valve oil seals. Now, if it's the valve oil seals, there's a relatively easy way of fixing it. And I kind of hope it is, because A, it's easy, but B, it's absolutely ingenious the way of doing it, and it will make really good content. I'm already thinking like a content creator, not a rescuer of a classic car. So that's great. But there is quite an easy way to diagnose the problem, and that is to do a compression test. I was going to do a compression test on it when I first got the car as one of the first things, but I freely admit I got carried away and I didn't. If it turns out the bottom of the engine's shot, I'm really going to love myself for spending the huge amount of money welding it. Etc. When actually what I should have been doing was something else. Anyway, those were brand new plugs yesterday. They are quite oily. So we are burning oil. The logic is that oil can only come from two places. It either comes past the piston rings on every cylinder, either comes past the piston rings, or it comes via the oil seals on the valves. That one's very oily. Now, a thing that I've thought of as well while I've been standing here that might have exacerbated it is when they changed the carburettor, they were a one for blocking off hoses. And I wonder if they've blocked off the breather, because if they blocked off the breather, the engine will pressurise, and that will make a situation which is still wrong worse. Because engines of this age, you do get a bit of pressure inside them from the cylinders, you just do. And if that pressure builds up, it will blow it past any weak point. Yeah, look. We've got a breather there, but also there's a breather here in the rocker box that's got a bolt in it, like it's being blocked off. And that actually, of course, should have a small piece of hose pipe that goes from there, yes, back to the cleaner. Yeah, that's a complete bodge. Because that should be going into the rocker box, into the air filter rather. If it was leaking past the piston rings, they may well have done that deliberately. But anyway, I'm wittering. The whole point, what we're doing, is take all the plugs out, do a compression test, because if it's the valve stem oil seals, the valve's still shut, so the compressions won't be affected. If it's the rings, the compressions will be through the floor. So a compression test is the ideal way of diagnosing it. So if we draw a picky of the engine, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, fan at the front, what we can do is do a compression test on each one, write the numbers down, and then we can go away and think about it and see what the possibilities are. And then we give it about 5 seconds on the starter. Now it will sound like it's got no compression at all because I've taken all the plugs out, but that also helps the engine spin nicely. And so there we can see we've got 170. Not too bad. So that's 150, that one. 170. 170. 170. 170. 180. Okay, so the one that's low there is number 2. So let's get a second opinion on that. $155. So 2 is low, but they are within 10% of each other. Now, apparently, number 2, not great, but not terrible. I mean, if it were the rings, we'd be lower than that, I'm sure we would. We'd have to be. What we can do, apparently, is squirt a little bit of oil into the cylinder that is suspected. And what it does is seals the rings. And we'll see if that set of numbers changes. Let's put a little squirt of 3-in-1 oil in there. $155. It's not improved it. So there's nothing wrong with the rings. That's a valve that's not sitting nicely. So, yeah, okay, number 2 is a bit low. but didn't change with oil. The rings aren't gone on this engine. It must be the valve stem oil seals, which is good because I can get them. In fact, we might just lift that rocker cover off in a sec and have a look. I can get them from a company in Germany. In fact, I've already ordered them just in case, because they were £2.50 each. And there's 12 of them. It was more for the shipping. Cost more to have them shipped from Germany than actually the cost of the seals. And as I say, there is a way of doing it. Let me just take that rocker box off and I'll show you. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, that's 8 bolts. So that's all 8 bolts out of that rocker cover in 5 minutes. If this was a modern car, I'd still be undoing bits of plastic to try and get to it. And this is something I've got to get into get the mindset of. You know, it's not like a modern car. It's designed to be serviced. It's designed for you to be able to get to things. I mean, even that gasket will go again. I mean, it may not be the problem, of course. Incidentally, I'm not just relying on luck to make sure all those plug leads are back in the right place. I did mark them when I first got the car, and I've checked the firing order since. I can see why the oil seals are so important, because the oil is flowing across the rockers and down the valve neck. If there's any give in them seals at all, they're going to be drenched in oil. Isn't it beautiful how an engine works? Oil supply is good on them all. One of them's tapping. We're getting oil everywhere. All my lovely new paintwork. I wasn't noticing any clouds of smoke coming up through that. Do you know, I'm very tempted. I think what we'll do, we'll just put the lid back on, set the breather up properly, the way it should be, i.e. not the way they had it set up, and take it for a run. See if we get the same clouds of smoke. I hope you notice with me that there's a refreshing lack of dugga guns and that sort of thing, because you can't feel what you're doing and it's so easy to break something. Whereas if you use proper hand tools, like, see, I can feel that's enough. That's all it needs. Just to start squeezing the gasket. And like that, that's all it needs. Anything more than that and I'll start warping the cover. Let's take the old boy for a drive. I mean, effectively, all I've done is I've changed that crankcase ventilation. We corrected that. That's all I've done. I haven't really done anything else at all. Right, hi everyone. So, a few seconds ago for you, but actually a day ago for me, I had tried to have a look at some of the things that might be wrong with this that were causing it to smoke under acceleration. First thing, done a compression test, and that looks okay. Second thing I did was connect up the breathers properly in case the engine was pressurizing. So I had the breather connected properly, and then I took it for a run, and it was just as bad. Thing is, it doesn't look like blue smoke, it looks like grey or black smoke. And I think the next thing, obviously got the oil seals coming for the valve stems, but they're winging their way over from Germany at the moment. And the thing that occurs to me now that's wrong, or rather not standard, is the carburettor. It's got this Weber 38D gas on it, and it should have a Solax or Solex 4A1 on it. Rebuilt before. I had that carburettor in the boot when I bought the car, and I've rebuilt it. If I remember, I'll put a card here with a link to the video where I rebuilt it, or at least cleaned it and put it back together. So I think the next thing to do is put that carburettor on, and let's see what it looks like with the correct carburettor on it. The other thing that's happened is I have succumbed to some more new tools. And Ben Molesworth of Tasty Classics, I totally blame you for this, because in his latest video, he was extolling the virtues of Halford's advanced tools, because they are a good price. They have a lifetime warranty, so if you break them, they'll take them back, they'll replace them. And apparently the quality is quite good. So Ben, this is totally down to you putting the idea in my head. So what we've got on here is this sort of twin barrel Weber. You'll sort of see in a minute when I get the other carburettor out how much smaller this Weber actually is compared to the original fit. And there's a converter plate underneath it. We'll take that off as well. So that's the Weber off. So now we can take off this conversion plate. Got little piles of washers under all of that. So I freely admit I know very little about carburettors, but I am fairly sure that there shouldn't be puddles of petrol underneath the carburettor. That is absolutely flooded to bits. It's like Play-Doh at the swimming pool. It's so wet. That's not right at all. Something's wrong with that carburettor, I'm sure of it. And the whole point of a carburettor is it's supposed to vaporise the fuel. It's not supposed to just dump it down there like it's chucking it down a drain. Next thing that needs to happen is these studs need to come out because they are too short in the Solex. These studs are quite long because they go right the way through the body of the carburettor. Yeah, I don't know whether these studs have been taken out, or whether the original studs have been taken out and these have been put in, or whether they're the original studs and they've just been cut down. The traditional way of getting studs out was always to lock two nuts together on them, and then give them a turn. It's the worst thing that could happen now is I snap a stud off. Bulldog. Another way of seeing this done is actually to weld a nut to the top of the stud. Nuts welded onto studs without setting fire to the car. Impressive dealing with petrol like that. I will make a confession, I didn't use any gas because I can't get the gas bottle out, the car's in the way. Not done a thing. These are going to need drilling and helicoiling, aren't they? I can feel it coming. No, start again. It's so badly in there. I'm actually of a mind. Come to think of it, I've got the opportunity now to cut them off flush, and that means I'll be able to drill them. And I'm seriously thinking of drilling and tapping them. I've got my tap and die set here. I think it might be better than risking that again and breaking them off where I can't get a nice flat top. Okay, this is another one of those 2 seconds ago for you, a day ago for me. Basically where we were, we had taken the old Weber carburettor off and had to drill out the studs in the manifold in order to put new longer studs in to fit the new carb. What actually happened, I went off to Machine Mart to get some helicoils, and when I came back, the microphone didn't reconnect. So the next 2.5 hours worth of footage were all silent. However, you didn't miss much. In fact, I'll show now a couple of little bits of it. There is a very, very fast sequence where I helicoil the manifold and then spend 20 minutes saying how wonderful helicoils are. And they genuinely are. It's a kit, comes with a drill. You drill out the correct size hole in the manifold and then you put a tap through it. I chose to put my tap in my little drill so I could hold it nice and square and tap the hole, and then you wind a helicoil into it. Bingo, you've got a wonderful new thread to put the original size stud in. They are just stunning, and it was worth an 1.5 hours drive to go and get a helicoil kit. That allowed me to fit the carburetor. I then had huge trouble getting the car to start. I hadn't moved the idle speed or the idle mixture adjustment on the carb when I rebuilt it, because I assumed it would be right and I didn't want to mess with it. It wasn't. It wouldn't start at all. I then took the car for a drive, and good news and bad news. The bad news was the smoke was still present. I am again leaning towards valve guides because, when I started it this morning, big puff of blue smoke, and that's classic valve seal, oil seal. But it does seem to get worse when it gets hot, and it's worse when it's under load. However, that's the smoking problem. The other thing was having this carburetor on it, night and day. So much happier car. I mean, and don't get me wrong, this carburetor is 1,000,000,000% out of tune. It's just plonked on there, and it was still better than that Weber, much better. So today's set of jobs. In fact, hang on a second, I'll go get some paperwork. I'm back with some paperwork. The chap in Hanover who's put up a website, it's senator-monza.de. It's amazing. It's so good. It's got so much information on it. It's all in German. But of course, that's not really a problem. You just run it straight through Google Translate. And if you can learn the kind of way it translates it and what that means, for example, a word there that Google Translate couldn't handle because it's got a Schloss in it. Schleichwinkel. Schleichwinkel. Schleichwinkel means angle, which means angle delay. It means dwell angle. It means contact breakers. Once you get your head around that, it's quite helpful. So there is a set of adjustments that need to be made on this carburetor before, and there's like tons of them that are of actual basic setup of linkages, the throttle actuator. For example, I'm fairly sure that's set wrong because it's never touching the throttle linkage, and it should be that when you take the vacuum off of it, the engine should rev to 2,000 revs. So all of that's got to be done, and it, you know, there's tons of it, and then you finally get to the end, which is where you adjust the CO, the mixture. So there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done on that. I've also got the manual for the carburetor. I do want to check the float petrol level. It's a bit difficult to see what that should be. I've seen one source that says it should be 7mm plus or minus a millimetre, and I've seen another source for when this car's on a Rolls Royce that says 9mm plus or minus 1.5mm. So to me, about 8mm is probably about right. The other thing, of course, that is currently wrong on this is there's no electronics on it. The electricity, it runs like a servo valve, and it runs a heater on the choke. So I've got to fix that. So I've got the wiring diagrams of the car as well to try and find that out. So basically, today I have a checklist of things. We need to sort the carburetor electrics out. Then we need to do the float level, all the linkage gaps, all the setup as per the setup manual. Then do the CO. We then need to start looking at where this oil's coming from, because if it is burning oil when it's driving, it's coming into the cylinders from one or other of several places. This is a little bit like the old Sherlock Holmes things of once you've eliminated all the possible things, the only thing left must be what it is. I have a different theory, which is it's usually the stupidest and most unlikely thing. There are only several ways the oil can get in there to burn. Piston rings, valve guides, so bottom end of engine, top end of engine. Or it's being introduced into the air. And there's two possible ways it could be being introduced into the air. One of them is the air from the vacuum servo. Is it hoovering brake fluid in there? Is that what it is? And there's another vacuum line, and that vacuum line goes to the gearbox. So is it hoovering gearbox oil, hydraulic fluid in there? Both of those are relatively simple things to do because I can just disconnect them and take the car for a run. Does it make it better or worse? And then finally, there's one more test I can do on the cylinders. I did that compression test and it showed generally everything being okay, but it did show number 2 as being 20 psi lower than all the others. So I bought a leak down testing kit, and that, if nothing else, it would be fun to do. It's you screw it into the spark plug hole, and then you blow compressed air into it from the compressor, and it tells you how fast that compressed air is leaving the cylinder. It gives you a gauge that's marked from 0 to 100%. Apparently, a brand new engine that's absolutely perfect could leak up to 20%. So anything between sort of 0 and 40%, happy days, no problem at all. Anything more than that, you can show some wear. So we can see if we've got any leak like that. So it's a little bit more sophisticated than a compression test. And the really useful thing of it is if there is a cylinder that's leaking, you can then find out where the air is leaking to. If you can hear the air through the dipstick, it's going past the rings into the oil pan. Logic. If you can hear the air coming out the carburetor, it's a burnt out inlet valve. If you can hear the air coming out of the exhaust, it's a burnt out exhaust valve. If you've got bubbles coming through the radiator, it's a head gasket or a cracked head. It's a really, really clever diagnostic. And so we're going to do that and find out what it is. And then if the answer to all those things is still in the negative for finding an obvious fault, then it's probably the valve stem oil seals, because there's nothing left. That will have eliminated all of the possibles. So I'm going to crack on tracing this wiring out. It's probably not a lot I can show you, but I'll come back when I know what was what. Okay, possibly already sussed something out. I had assumed that this was the cable that connected to the carburetor, but it's not. It's actually broken off of that sensor there. It's that should be the brake fluid sensor. The actual carburetor supply is this one here, which is a black and yellow stripe. On the diagram, it is marked up as SWGE. SW, of course, Schwarz. GE, Gelb. Black and yellow. So that is the connection to the carburetor. There is a problem with the carburetor wiring that needs to be fixed, because it should have, that's the thing that goes onto the choke, and there should be another cable coming off of that going to earth. So that needs fixing, but that's not too much of a problem. Also, this heater wire has been put in, this is the coolant temperature sensor. It's just rubbish. I'm going to redo that because it's awful. Yeah, so we just do that bit of wiring and then move on to the next stage. We've ticked one off the list. If I had a pen with me, I'd do a ceremonial tick off of the list, but I haven't. So I haven't. So I won't. Oh, incidentally, that socket set I bought yesterday, Halfords gave me that as a freebie. It's a really nice little screwdriver set. Right. Next thing, carburetor setup, float level. Let's do that. So I'll just take the lid off the carburetor and then we'll come back. Okay, so that's the lid of the carb taken off with the rest of it in place. So we've got floating in fuel there. Just need to run the pump a little bit, just to top that up, because where I've taken the lid off, things have come out of the float chamber, so it will have lowered the fuel level. And we'll see where it settles down, and then we can measure it and see how high that fuel level is and whether it's right or not. I think I'd rather have it a bit lower. 8 would be in spec for either of the things I've found. Okay, so that's let it fill up again to its natural level. Let's see where we've got 9.38, 10.13, too much. 10.18, 8.15, 6, that's too much, overcooked it. 7.5, that's in spec for both. Good, right. Float level, check. Halfway through the day and all we've done is one bit of wire and a float level. This stuff takes so long. Okay, carburetor back on, float level done, gaps and stuff. If you hadn't got that manual, how would you set that up? That's I've never seen a carburetor have set up like that on it. Anyway, let's get the engine warm. I'll come back when it's nicely warmed up. Adjustment must be made when the engine is warm, which it is now. Installation length of the preloaded spring should be 25 to 35.5 millimeters. 22.5 to 23.5. It's half a mil out. Okay, so with that disconnected, that should now be accelerating the car, and it isn't. That should go up to 2,000 revs. So that needs adjusting. I've just noticed something very interesting. That side is chucking fuel in like it's going out of fashion, and that side isn't. Now we do the CO. Right, what I did there was I tuned both sides to get the highest amount of vacuum. That's also given us a reasonable idle. See what the tailpipe says. Tailpipe says 1%, which is bang in the middle. Tailpipe still says 1% with the air cleaner on it. Of course, we've got the brake servo disconnected, so we've really got to lean on the brakes. I can see we're still burning oil. Oh, that's better. Typically on that shakedown drive that we just did, the minute I drove away, the SD card filled up on the camera. Amazing, absolutely amazingly successful. That's the first time I've been able to drive it without feeling embarrassed with the smoke. By the time I got to the end of the road, I realised that I had to reconnect the gearbox and the brake servo because the brakes were very difficult to use and the gearbox wasn't changing gear without any vacuum. So reconnected those, didn't make a difference. It's not producing the clouds of smoke it was. Which I can only put down to the carburetor. There is a little bit of blue smoke, so there is a bit of oil burning, but it's not the clouds and clouds of it that I was getting. So from our list, carburetor electrics, done. Carburetor setup, all of that, done. Definitely the transmission and the brake servo are not adding smoke to the party. So while it's hot, let's do the leak down test. And that will tell me what's going on. But genuinely, that was a very good drive. It takes a bit of getting used to a 3-geared car because you expect it to change up and it won't. There's nothing left, nowhere to go. Before I set up for the leak down test, let's just have a look at a plug because, as I say, this has literally come from what I can only describe as an Italian tune-up. You know, we've been for a bit of a blast to see what's going on. That's a lot better. As a colour of a plug, that's a lot better. That's not covered in black soot like it has been. It's a nice brown on the end. Plugs can tell you a lot about your engine, and that says Happy Bunny. Let's see what they look like on the rear three, because so the carburetor does have sort of two sides to it, which again, yeah, much happier. Much happier. Okay, right, so we're at 0 there. We're set. %. 10% leak down. Sorry. So it's about 20% that one. Engine's turning. 10%. About 15%. 25%. And number 2, that's the lowest one so far. And that was the same as we got on the compression test, that one was just a little bit weaker. About 15%. Yep, we'll do the valve stem oil seals because we can, and because it's easy, and it can't hurt.